Golden Daughter, Part 3. Lortel is a staunch realist and a master of compromise. It was her destiny to become so, given her vast ambitions but limited innate abilities. To an outsider, this might sound absurd, because Lortel was one of only 3 students to earn class a status from Professor Glast upon entering the academy. She could recite the core of a book after just one reading. Her mana sensitivity was beyond the reach of ordinary students, and she was backed by the wealthy LT Trading Company. Yet, none of these attributes could propel her to the top tier. In the realm of magic, there's the untouchably superior Slowful Lucy. In terms of judgment, quick thinking, and adaptability in combat, she couldn't catch up. Spear of Foliage Zix. Her family background, noble status, innate character, and leadership skills all seemed futile in front of her rival, Princess Funia. Fate had seemingly consigned Lortel to a second-rate life, but Lortel broke through this cruel destiny with her pure desire. Oh, Senior Yunika. Weighing benefits and losses, striving to tip the balance even slightly in her favor with relentless tenacity. Her brutally realistic worldview and her infinitely compromising stance, willing to shake hands with necessary evils, sometimes branded her as an opportunist. Yet, Lortel never felt insulted by this label. She believed missing an opportunity that came within reach was far more shameful. I meant to bring you a gift when I visited, but here we are. You're Lortel, right? You look so different with your hair down. I get that a lot. They were in the corridor of Aphelios Hall, one of Sylvania's 3 most luxurious dormitories. Admission required either overwhelming status or academic performance. Yunika met the latter condition, while Lortel, as the heir to the LT Trading House, met both. However, this didn't significantly affect their living conditions within the dormitory. For Lortel, she was just returning to her room after an evening bath, attended by the maids of Aphelios Hall. Her casual attire and loosely tied, damp hair might have seemed refreshingly different to Yunika. The other day, I caused quite a stir in the joint combat training by using intermediate magic on my own. I admit I can be impulsive. It's been a while. But I wanted to apologize when the opportunity arose. Is that so? Yunika was pressured by Lortel's barrage of intermediate ice spells, Ice Spear and Instant Freeze, to assess the worth of Sylvania Academy's second-year top student. Despite being a lower year, the lineup of first-year students is formidable, making victory in a duel uncertain even for upperclassmen. Yet, the title of second-year top student couldn't be taken lightly. With Lucy Meryl reigning supreme among the first years, discussing the position of top student seemed pointless. However, Lortel's name was never omitted when considering the second best. The gap between her and Yunika was something she wanted to measure, but unfortunately, the attempt ended meaninglessly. Even intermediate elemental spells couldn't inflict significant damage on Yunika, who commands high spirits, as if they were her limbs. Arrogance comes at a price. Thus, even long after the joint combat training had ended, Lortel had to wear bandages under her clothes due to injuries that hadn't fully healed. The wounds haven't healed yet. Lortel keenly noticed a residual sense of obligation in Yunika's gaze. Yunika Filover is excessively kind. Her nature incites a strong protective instinct in those around her, elevating her to an idol among second-year students. Especially now, when second-year students are overwhelmingly outperformed by the first year's Yunika, who still shows competence and seniority, has become their savior. In a way, Lortel's humiliating defeat during the joint combat training wasn't entirely without merit. Before, she was the adorable and charming top spirit mage we needed to protect. Now, she's practically the only light and hope for the second-year students. Becoming the object of such admiration happens in the blink of an eye. It should heal soon. Don't worry too much, Senior. After all, connections translate to social power. Having lived by this truth, Lortel never lets go of her business smile when facing the cute second-year top student. If the other party feels indebted to me, that too is an asset. Not utilizing available assets is foolish. With these thoughts, Lortel planned to use this debt as an opportunity to deepen her relationship with Yunika. Things didn't go well with Ed, I take it. Occasionally, this spirit mage would pierce through with an inscrutably clear smile. In the world of commerce, such a cunning smile is synonymous with hypocrisy. A kind and innocent smile is often a mask for merchants pondering how to deceive others. Yet remarkably, there's not a trace of malice in that girl's laughter. It's a pure question, thrown without any ill intent or agenda. News from the Northern Forest reaches me. Spirits are quite the gossipers. Lortel, having unilaterally followed Ed Roth-Taylor and engaged in conversation, was headed straight for the entrance to the Northern Forest. Originally, the Northern Forest was entirely Yunika Filover's domain, as most spirits roaming the forest sided with her. Even so, only the outskirts of the distant Northern Forest were visible. Yet, that too was considered Yunika's domain, which was quite baffling to Lortel. The conversation between Ed Roth-Taylor and Lortel Kehelm was not something to be proudly disclosed. Attempting to buy the spirit mage Yunika's connections with money and, incidentally, using Ed Roth-Taylor's predicament to gauge his worth was not exactly a situation to be proud of. Lortel has her way, I suppose. But Yunika's attitude, respecting even that, truly warranted the title of a saint. Ed must have had his reasons too. From my point of view, that's more touching. Of course. I was touched that Lortel was willing to invest gold coins eagerly to befriend me. But genuine sincerity can't be bought with money, right? Am I sounding too conceited? It's my first time having a junior, so maybe I'm overdoing it. Eek, how embarrassing. Witnessing such a scene, Lortel doesn't denigrate or criticize her approach. Only then did Lortel fully comprehend the common view of Yunika. A girl straight out of a fairy tale, the assessment that evokes an adorable and lively girl also carries a subtly demeaning connotation. Living in a flowered, unaware of the harsh realities of the world. To Lortel, it seemed to imply as much, but it appears she was mistaken. This girl understands even the grimy aspects of the world, yet maintains her spirited nature. In the presence of a bright light, those with dark intentions shrink back into the shadows. When everyone is mired in the mud, it's easy to assume that being covered in dirt is the natural state of being. Naturally, This is a misconception. Searching every corner of the world, one is bound to find such people. It wasn't unknown, but Ed is much more determined and interesting than you think. Really? Why do you think that? He, with a laugh, she turned around and untied her braided hair. Secret. It was only then that Lortel realized she had reached Yanika's door. Planning to relax comfortably once inside, she would undo her braided hair and loosen the ties of her ornate casual dress. As always, I only heard the spirits gossiping, so if I made it too obvious, it would seem too stalkerish. Isn't being friendly with spirits something to be proud of? Thanks for saying that, but there are things that are more fun to know just by oneself. Yanika, standing at her door, turned around with a beaming smile. Whatever the spirits had whispered about Ed was known only to her. I'll head in now, Dean McDowell suggested, trying to contract with another high spirit next month. That means more studying and preparation. Haven't you already contracted with a high fire spirit? It seems expectations have risen lately. I'll have to work hard. Being expected is a good thing. With that, Yanika opened her door. Oh, right. Lortel, finally letting out with her characteristic charming smile. I'm sorry about last time. You got quite hurt because of me, right? I hope you heal quickly. After saying this, she slowly closed the door, a gesture laden with leisure, but clearly the result of much deliberation. Standing in front of the gently closed door, Lortel pondered for a while. Ed Roth-Taylor is certainly an interesting person, she thought, but she couldn't quite grasp why Yanika held him in such high esteem. What made Yanika hold Ed Roth-Taylor in such regard? That question seemed futile for now. Better to tuck it away in a corner of her mind. Anyway, the glimpse of the peculiar scene through the closing door left a lasting impression. Upon observing, it seemed there was an odd sense of precariousness hidden behind the lively and leisurely demeanor. Whatever the cause might be, a clear answer would not readily present itself. Moming Ed Roth-Taylor, N. Sex male, age 17, grade 2, racy human, achievements known, strength 6, intelligence 5, dexterity 9, willpower 8, luck 6, detailed combat ability, detailed magic ability, in detailed life skills, in detailed alchemy skills, in more new creation. After expertly weaving a fishnet for stocking, he secured it to tree branches and installed it in the flowing stream so that it wouldn't collapse. It seemed he could keep the captured fish alive for a few days. Creation difficulty 2. Ma, you have completed the creation. Your proficiency has increased. N. The net, which took half a day to make, turned out to be more useful than expected. Although half was immediately used up for the fishnet, the rest seemed like it would come in handy someday. Thinking of trying net fishing or tying it up like a hammock for a good resting place seemed like a good idea. He felt satisfied with the thought. As his residence was gradually shaping up, his ambition grew. His diet was diversifying and improving, and the days of exhaustion from lack of strength were diminishing. Previously, just running to the faculty building would leave him feeling spent for the day, but recently, he began to lightly jog on the way back as well. Even after going to bed late, he could wake up refreshed the next morning which added to his sense of fulfillment and confidence in this lifestyle. Moreover, the enhancement in his magic skills significantly contributed to his survival. Detailed magic ability. N. Grading. Basic mage specializationing. Elemental common magic. Quick casting LV 2 mana sensing LV 5 fire element magic ignition. LV 10 air element magic. Wind blade. LVL 10. He couldn't properly use intermediate magic yet, so the only basic magic he knew were these two. However, by repeatedly practicing them to the point of exasperation and relying on them for survival, had led him to reach his initial goal of proficiency, level 10. Now with focus he could fell a tree of considerable thickness in one blow, and controlling or igniting a fire was a piece of cake. Of course, his natural mana was so scarce that mastery over magic use was impossible. In terms of windblade and ignition, there were few first years more proficient than him. Once he had a decent grasp of elemental magic, it became convenient for daily tasks like chopping wood and controlling the fire at night. It also provided great help during crafting by processing the materials. He had to admit it was starting to get fun before heading to classes at the faculty building. When he looked back at his camp after packing up, he didn't have much, but it was a place built with his own hands. A sense of proud satisfaction and fulfillment filled him, and it made him want to try even more things. First off, he spent too much effort on smoking fish. He wondered if he could build a proper smoker to prevent the smoke from spreading. However, he didn't have a clear idea on how to design the structure. Those are things that can be done at any time, though. By the crackling fire, after checking the laundry and jerky on the drying rack, he sat down by the fireplace again. Today's duties at the faculty building went well, and after check given by assignment, Senior Elemental Studies Professor Eskeen, he could wrap up the day. Considering it was still early evening, he was becoming quite adept at managing his daily schedule. He hummed a tune, working on the final touches of an arrow. Lately, things were going smoothly, and he maintained a good mood throughout the day. If he could continue to spend free days like this until graduation, it would not interfere with his plans. With that relaxed thought, the day was concluding nicely. Crash! Suddenly, a monster of a wrecking ball came flying in, shattering the carefully constructed drying rack and rolling on the ground a couple of times. A flock of birds took the forest sky with a flutter, and thick clouds of dust obscured the view for some time. As he looked up from sharpening his bow, the all-too-familiar and utterly detested witch hat gently landed on the ground in his line of sight. Looking up further, there was Lucy Mariel, rolling on the ground with the destroyed drying rack, entangled in an old tree stem, looking quite a sight. What's going on? Rising to his feet a beat late, Lucy slowly responded as he lay there. I almost died. That, coming from Lucy Merrill's mouth, was a line that should never have been said. At this time in the early evening, after dinner at the Aphelios Hall, the girl who should be idly roaming around appeared to have taken a nasty fall here for some reason. Within the scope of my knowledge of this school, the only one capable of posing a threat to Lucy was arguably Headmaster Obel. If someone had forced Lucy to experience a brush with death, It was a factor that was out of my control. A sense of urgency was heightened, and I swiftly rose to question Lucy. Almost died. By whom? Belle. By Belle Mayer. It was the name of a senior maid at Ophelius Hall. Damn. I hastily grabbed a stick from the surrounding debris and threw it towards Lucy, expecting it to be deflected, but surprisingly no defensive magic activated. Lucy, hit squarely by the stick on the head, collapsed to the ground with a pitiful expression marked by a black streak on the forehead. You actually got hit. My mana's run out. The incredible speed and the aftermath that couldn't be followed by AI were clearly the work of high-level spatial magic space leap. High-level spells required concentration and chanting, even by the professors. I skipped out on the monthly meeting, called by the dormitory head after dinner. And then, Belle came at me, fuming, fists clenched. I suddenly remembered the various scenes I had witnessed involving Lucy. No one could predict the behavior of this self-entitled troublemaker, except for her nemesis, Belle Mayer. Whenever she caused trouble, missed schedules, or her posture wasn't proper, Belle would straighten her out with a punch to the temple. This method of correction had deep roots, and there's a well-known expert in this field, Feng Mai-soon. It might be comical, the genius Lucy suppressed by a maid. But not even Lucy, with her God-given talent, dared to mess with the maids of Ophelius Hall. The unspoken rule at this Sylvania institution was that the maids, who assist the students, without error, are to be treated with the utmost respect. Besides, before even discussing such rules, the students at Ophelius Hall owed a debt of gratitude to the maids. Despite always being pampered, the efficiency of the maids was incredible. Basic housekeeping and cooking, along with academic support and simple magic demonstrations, showcased their expertise with such skill. Yet they were entirely devoted to their primary role of supporting students, avoiding unnecessary interventions and mostly keeping to themselves. Belle Mayer's stern demeanor wasn't unique. It all happened too quickly, so I just ran away. I'm such a mess. Essentially, she had applied quick casting to high-level spatial magic, and even used silent spellcasting to fly all the way from Ophelius Hall. These haphazard practices ruin mana efficiency, more than doubling or tripling exponential concerns. Furthermore, the spell cast was a high-level one, spatial magic at that, using it in such a brutish manner. It was like deploying a private jet for a grocery run. No surprise, even Lucy's abundant mana had run out instantaneously. Even Headmaster Obel wouldn't attempt such a feat. The absurdity of the situation was laughable. Angry Belle spinning her fists in threat, and Lucy fleeing like a cat that found a cucumber, ending up here. Lucy lay on the ground, spent in her hastily thrown-on pajamas. It's so hard. You brought it on yourself, didn't you? It's been tough lately. Especially the senior maid's gotten too sensitive. Belle Mayer, typically focused on her duties like a machine. She may seem unaffected, but I can tell. She's on edge, maybe concerned about someone, though why I have to suffer for it. If only you'd behave, wouldn't that solve the problem? That's the usual response, which I saw no point in voicing. Everyone knows it's pointless. Lucy, covered in dirt as she lay sprawled out, after a while, opened her mouth. Hey. Whenever she addresses me with a hey, it's always the same. The following words were predictable. Do you have any jerky? Feeling peckish. I sighed, pointed casually at Lucy's surroundings. There lay the remnants of the drying rack she had crashed into, and the jerky that had been laid out on it. Of course, the jerky, now rolling on the ground and crusted with dirt, was no longer edible. Eek. Seeing this, Lucy's face instantly paled, and seizing the moment, I snapped my fingers on her forehead. Drained of every drop of mana, Lucy could only roll on the ground with a groan.